Hello, everyone. I am very thankful and very honored to have been invited by Mind and Life Europe to be with you today on this topic of how to act in an uncertain world. And there is an underlying wish to tackle big issues such as climate change. And I am telling you my personal story from this personal perspective, because in my experience, the role of the individual is always to not stop working on self-development, because only through deepening our knowledge, both the practical knowledge, but even more so the knowledge about ourselves, our values, about the human condition. This is what can bring true cooperation, because only through true understanding and true cooperation can we solve such big issues as climate change. First, a few words about myself. I am speaking to you from the north coast of Estonia. Estonia is a small country in the Nordics. It was once also occupied by the Soviet Union, but now already 30 years we are independent again, and a very lovely country. And I am also honored to be one of the representatives of our parliament for the second time elected, and also in this parliament since about February this year. I am chairing the environmental committee, which means that I am working with the issues of solving different climate change issues and the issues to deal with sustainability of our life at this planet daily. And by training, I am actually an architect and city planner. I have quite a large family with 4 children, a lovely husband, and in general, I am a very optimistic and happy person. I grew up with a bit of a rock and roll dad, and mostly alone with my father. And when I was 10 years old, I moved from Estonia to Sweden and lived there for a while. Went to school, and I lost my father when I was 15. So I think this was one of the sort of defining moments for me, when I somehow made the rules for my life, but also maybe growing up with a as I say, rock and roll father. I think already also as maybe even at a younger stage of life, I always felt like I was responsible for my life, and if I wanted to make something happen, I better do it myself. So then I moved back to Estonia after a while when I was 20, and went to university and became an architect, and now since about 7 years back, I'm mostly involved in politics. I'm also very interested in human scale city planning. But I think ever since teenage years, and also maybe early grown-up years, I have always been very interested in religion, or maybe I should say like the philosophical side, the spiritual side of religion, the self-development side of different religions, and looked at a lot at different Eastern philosophies. And big was my surprise when I discovered that also in the parliament I could actually also deal with these themes when I was approached by colleagues in the UK, and since a few years back I also run the cross-party mindfulness group in our parliament and try to advance these themes in the parliament. So I consider myself as having been reborn about 2 years ago, and this process of rebirth and this process of maybe, I would say, also growing up and learning to trust life instead of these rules that I had with me from my earlier childhood, when I always had to do everything myself and be very perfect. And this changes started after the last elections in 2019, when I experienced a very physically very rough burnout, which happened to begin with in the middle of the night, and then I had this very severe panic attack and fainted, and just got up in the middle of the night and didn't understand what was going on, and ended up in the ER a couple of times during a period of maybe 10 days, when I basically felt like the whole of my structure that I had built up that far was crushed and somehow spread out on the floor. I also had this very severe or these thoughts of like being into bits and asking myself, do I even exist if I don't go to work? This is one of the thoughts that was present. Also, I started straight away during these days going back to also childhood issues, and I think I was opened up quite thoroughly. And from there on, I definitely saw this as a very positive process, a process of growth. Of course, it was painful in the beginning, but as soon as I got the, so to say, diagnosis that no, actually you are not going to die, but you have to learn to live maybe a little bit differently. I went along on this very, I would say, conscious process of self-development, and the two videos that I asked you to watch before today, I hope you had a chance to watch them. And I think the issue of anxiety versus fear is something that is of key importance. The fact that different difficult moments, whether it be in relations to ourselves or whether it be in relations, for example, when I am leading the environmental committee and I have these people with different interests before me, these narrow spots of anxiety, whether inside a person or between people, they are a part of life. But how to proceed and how to not be stuck in this moment of fear, which is paralyzing, and how to go through this place. Also, when we talk about climate change, some people say that we haven't managed to actually make a change, make things better, because we don't feel it as close to our daily lives as it actually is. But lately, I think in the last couple of years, it's really come to a point where we are feeling it. And with, for example, the huge fires in Australia, or weather that people don't recognize all over the world in different forms, or also migration, which is also actually due very much due to climatic issues. And also, of course, things like energy prices, or things that are starting to make us see that there is a threat to our life as it has been so far. And I would even say, to my experience, we are at the moment entering this paradigm of fear. And some people say that it's actually good that we have this fear, because this is the only thing that will make us really act. But I think it is really important that also, when I see in my work daily, the first level of this fear, of this feeling of losing my life as it was before, mm, this is the point where we have to be very careful how we proceed. And one issue I would like to bring in here, which has helped me both personally, and which I think can also be enlarged or brought into this larger processes, is how important it is to distinguish between the things that actually do change the changing nature of the world, and at the same time some things that are eternal. And this concept in, for example, yoga philosophy, known, maybe if some of you are acquainted with this, the Purusha and Prakriti. And I think why so many people on a personal level also, and societies on a larger level, are at this or are in this paradigm of fear, is that we don't really have uh, uh, an everyday practice, or a way of life where we do learn to distinguish between these two aspects of the world, which definitely both exists. So that if we do look at the things which are persistent, which are eternal, and which belong to this, I call it the vertical aspect, this spiritual, if you want to, it can be religious, but it doesn't have to do with religion, but it has to do with the person's sort of inner being. And this is also something that unites us, because we all have this inner being. We are united in this. And we don't have a practice where we focus on this very much. And that's why I think it is so difficult to see all the things that are changing in the everyday life, in the sort of material prakriti world, where, for example, one year comes this pandemic, the climate is changing, lots of things are changing. So I think the importance of bringing these vertical aspects of life into our development is of key importance. So if we view it like this, that the material world is sort of linear, our daily doings from morning till evening, or from birth to death, which is this life that also is all the time proceeding. But then there is also this these vertical aspects, which on a deep level, our roots, our values are in this very bottom, and towards the if we think about it as some kind of vertical development, moving towards also a bigger understanding of ourselves, of the human condition, maybe enlightenment at some level. These are things that are always there, and if we know, for example, these aspects of ourselves, our values, which do not change, then it is easier for us to cope and cooperate with the sort of practical linear world where things do change, and where we also have to change our own actions without feeling this fear of something being taken away from us. So I think this vertical side, this spiritual side, has always been within people. It doesn't have to do very much with religious institutions. It has to do with this intimate, specific human condition, our possibility to widen our perceptions, our understandings. And I want to share with you this also this my screen. So the concept of the endless knot. This was something that also during my burnout, the very sort of initial rough phase, this was a symbol I somehow saw in my mind's eye, and I also saw it funnily on the arm of one of the ER nurses that was taking care of me. And this stands for, in my view, for exactly these different aspects, both the horizontal, material, linear, and the vertical aspects of life. And it is very nicely put that there is a mutual dependence of religious doctrine and secular affairs. And during our path, the time when we are walking on this earth as humans, there is a need for this union of wisdom and method, and they are inseparable, this kind of emptiness, and at the same time the dependent arising, that the concept of rebirth, of course, but also the whole nature of the changing material world, and at the same time another reality, or parallel reality to it, the emptiness. And the goal, or the thought which should inspire us, that at the time of enlightenment there is a complete union of this wisdom, and there is great compassion, which means that only through not judging, through not giving into this fear of our life somehow, or our everyday life being taken away from us, whether it be farmers who cannot farm the same way anymore, or forestry where we cannot keep on cutting down trees like we used to, or where we have to use our modes of transport, or the way we actually buy and throw things away all the time. And these very practical things where we need to change and do this without the feeling that something is taken away from us, because our insights are expanding all the time. And one point I want to stress also, from this very practical side, I have had a lot of help by I have been very inspired by Stephen R. Covey's. It's a very famous book, The 7 Habits of Effective People. It's sold millions and millions of copies. But when really working through this book, when leading your professional life also, but not only professional, also your personal life based on these core values. For example, also for you after this meeting of ours, if you would sit down for a couple of minutes and try to put it down to paper, which are your core values, the main principles that guide you through your life. For me personally, I have come to an understanding that it is courage, which has to do with the stomach, if you wish. There is openness, which has to do with the mind, the intellectual interest for the world. And there is goodness, which kindness, which has to do with the heart. So these are the basic three values that I try to work from, or maybe also the energies that I want to cherish, that keep me going also in this material life. There is also this to end maybe. There is also this paradox a little bit, that being in this sort of beginning of the middle age, as I am now, I am 42. My 4 children are all quite big already. The youngest is becoming 9 soon. We are in this period of life where we, materially speaking or materialistically speaking, we are very engaged, and we are working a lot and dealing with our houses or summer houses. But at the same time, on this vertical spiritual level, we are at a point where we are starting to learn to give up, to abandon, and to not become attached, whether it be to our children, to our bodies, to our houses, or to our work, for example. So this is the process that the Endless Knot is also talking about. And I would also say that Covey's theory is, for example, the paradigm of seeking first to understand and then to be understood, listening more than speaking, of really looking for win-win solutions. These are the things that have also, next to all these spiritual side, these are the very basic methodological tools that have helped me in my work with when dealing with these very complex issues of mm, legislation, and also the reality of how we go about our affairs in when it comes to big things like the different aspects of climate change, where there are so many different interests and fears at play. So yes, I would really recommend to really take a look at this book by Covey, to really look at it as a workbook also, and to always remember that there is no opposition between the vertical and the horizontal. They are both just different aspects of ourselves, and the way to change the world can only go through opening up your own heart, learning to know yourself better, defining your values, and increasing your understanding of the human condition. So it has been nice speaking to you. I am really looking forward to our discussion, and maybe do also before think about these 3 or something core values that you base your life upon. Thank you for listening, and it will be nice to meet you soon in our discussion. Thank you.